Most people think powerful people fight back when disrespected. They don't. They do something most people would never think to do. And that one thing is why they keep winning while everyone else keeps reacting. Stay until the end. What you're about to hear changes how you operate in every situation where someone tries to push you off your position. Why? The person who reacts first has already lost. There is a moment that happens everywhere. At work, in relationships, in families, in every social space where two or more people exist. Someone makes a cutting remark. Someone dismisses you in a room full of people. Someone ignores you deliberately, or speaks over you, or treats your presence like an inconvenience. And the immediate pull is to respond, to correct the record, to make sure everyone in the room knows that what just happened was not okay. That pull feels like self-respect. It isn't. The moment you react on impulse to disrespect, you hand the other person something they didn't have a second ago. Control of the frame. The situation is now happening on their terms, inside their logic, in territory they already mapped out before you arrived. And worse, you've just shown them exactly where to press next time. Here's the question most people never stop to ask. Are you reacting to protect yourself? Or are you reacting because the emotion became unbearable and you needed to release it? Those are two completely different things. And confusing them is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make in any high-stakes environment. Watch the people who carry real authority in any room. Not the loudest ones. Not the ones who win every argument. The ones who seem to operate from somewhere calmer than everyone else. When tested, they don't accelerate. They slow down. That slowdown looks passive to someone watching from outside. It is not passive. It is the most sophisticated move available in that moment. Marcus Aurelius, who ran the most powerful empire on earth while being attacked from every direction simultaneously, wrote that you have no control over what other people do. You have total control over what you do next. That principle sounds simple until someone publicly humiliates you and your hands are shaking. The practical reality is this: an impulsive reaction to disrespect does not resolve the situation. It escalates it. An escalation almost always benefits the person who initiated the disrespect, because they planned for your reaction. They did not plan for your stillness. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is the absence of predictability. And the absence of predictability is one of the most powerful positions you can hold in any conflict. There is a difference between ignoring something and choosing not to react to it yet. Ignoring is passive. Choosing is strategic. One costs you ground. The other builds it silently, without anyone noticing it happening. Turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's next. Why silence does more damage than any argument ever could. Here is something that almost nobody teaches and almost everybody learns the hard way. Silence, used deliberately, is not the absence of a response. It is the most complete response available, and it does something that no argument, no rebuttal, and no perfectly constructed sentence can do. It forces the other person to sit inside what they just did. When you respond immediately to a provocation, you give the other person somewhere to go. They can respond to your response. They can escalate. They can reframe. The conversation keeps moving, and moving conversations can be redirected. But silence has no surface to push against. There is nowhere to go with it. And people who act in bad faith are deeply uncomfortable with that. Watch what happens when you stay quiet after someone takes a shot at you in a social setting. Most of the time, they fill the silence. They over-explain. They add qualifiers they didn't intend to add. They start to reveal the discomfort they were covering with the aggression in the first place. You didn't do anything, and yet, you extracted more information in 5 seconds of silence than most people get from an hour of confrontation. There is a behavioral pattern that holds across almost every social environment. The person who needs to prove something out loud has already lost the position they were trying to defend. Real authority does not announce itself. It is perceived before a single word is spoken. Think about the people in your own life that you genuinely respect, not the most vocal ones, the ones you actually listen to when they speak. What do they have in common? When pressure hits them, they don't become louder, they become quieter, and that quietness is unsettling in exactly the right way. Now, here's something worth sitting with. How many times have you said something in the heat of a moment that was then used against you? Not once. Repeatedly. Because the person who provoked you learned from the first time what your reaction reveals. That stops the moment you stop feeding it. Silence is not acceptance. It is not agreement. It is not surrender. It is the choice to keep your information internal until you decide what to do with it. And that choice, made consistently, changes how every room receives you. Has this ever shown up in your own life? Drop a comment below with the specific moment when staying quiet would have changed everything. Real answers only. The intelligent person's trap when someone disrespects them. There is a mistake that sharp, thoughtful people make when they are disrespected. It is a mistake that looks reasonable from the inside. It feels like the correct move. It might even be the move that everyone around you is encouraging. The mistake is trying to prove the disrespect was wrong. You build the case. You line up the facts. You construct a logical, clear, well-evidenced argument for why you deserved better. You present it calmly. You believe that clarity plus evidence will produce acknowledgement plus correction, and then it doesn't. Here is the behavioral reality underneath that outcome. Deliberate disrespect is rarely a reasoning error. It is a choice. It communicates a specific position, and that position does not get revised because of a well-organized argument. It escalates, or it deflects, or it gets used as further evidence that you can be moved by the right kind of pressure. The moment you try to convince someone that you deserve respect, you have placed them in the seat of judgment over your worth. That is a position you handed to them. They did not earn it, and no argument you make from that position gets stronger over time. It gets weaker. Think about what the attempt to convince actually signals. It signals that their opinion of you carries weight that you need adjusted. That is leverage. And anyone operating strategically will use leverage. People who carry real psychological strength operate differently. They do not persuade. They calibrate access. When someone reveals, through repeated behavior, the level of consideration they actually hold for you, that is data. It is not a problem to be solved through better communication. It is information to be used in deciding how much of yourself, your time, and your presence you extend to that person going forward. This is not coldness. This is clarity. There is a distinction worth making permanent in how you think about this. What someone deserves from you and what you choose to give them are two separate decisions. You can know, completely and privately, that you were treated unfairly, and still choose not to spend your energy trying to correct someone who has no intention of being corrected. Energy is not unlimited. Where you put it determines almost everything about what you produce. If this is hitting something real, the like costs you nothing and means more than you think. What is actually happening inside the mind that never breaks? There is a question almost no one asks honestly when you react to disrespect. Who are you doing it for? Not rhetorically. Specifically, are you doing it to change the situation, or to relieve the internal pressure of the emotion that became too heavy to hold? Because those two goals produce completely different behaviors, and only one of them actually moves your position forward. The people who rarely lose composure under pressure did not arrive there by being less sensitive than you. They arrived there by developing something that most people never train. The ability to observe their own emotional state without being commanded by it. That sounds abstract until you break it down practically. It means noticing the anger before acting from it. It means recognizing the urge to prove, to correct, to retaliate, and holding that recognition for long enough to make a choice. The emotion does not disappear. The automaticity of the response does. Viktor Frankl, who survived conditions designed to strip a person of every form of control, identified something precise in the middle of that experience. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lives the capacity to choose. Everything that separates reactive behavior from intentional behavior lives inside that space. That space is not given to most people. It is built. And the way it gets built is through repetition, through choosing, in smaller situations, to pause before responding, through learning, in low-stakes moments, what it feels like to hold an emotion without acting from it immediately, so that when the high-stakes moment arrives, the pause is already trained into you. Here is the thing about people who have built that space. they become the most difficult people to manipulate in any environment. Because manipulation depends on predictability, the manipulator needs to know that pressing a specific point will produce a specific reaction. When that prediction fails repeatedly, the entire strategy collapses. You do not become immune to being targeted. You become resistant to the mechanism that makes targeting effective. The other effect is subtler, but more permanent. When the people around you cannot predict how you will respond under pressure, they begin to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, because you stopped being readable. And in most social environments, the person who cannot be read holds more ground than the person who wins every argument. The calm is not the end result. It is the beginning of something else entirely. What psychologically strong people build that no one sees coming. Presence is not something you perform. It is something you accumulate. Every time you chose not to react on impulse, something was deposited. Every time you absorbed a provocation and chose your response, instead of defaulting to your reaction, your position expanded slightly. Every time you adjusted what someone had access to without making a speech about it, you demonstrated something that words could never communicate as effectively. The people around you cannot name exactly what shifted, but they feel it. The comments get more careful. The tests come less frequently. The conversations that matter start including you, not because you forced your way in, but because people have learned, through repeated experience, that you notice things they miss. That is not status. That is gravity. And gravity is not claim. It is earned through consistency over time. Here is the final point, and it ties everything together. Disrespect reveals the person delivering it, not the person receiving it. When someone chooses to diminish you, they are showing you their ceiling. They are showing you how they operate when they believe they can get away with something. They are handing you a full profile of who they are under the surface. Your response determines whether you use that information or waste it on a reaction that serves nothing except 2 seconds of relief. Every reactive person wastes it. Every psychologically strong person files it and acts accordingly. The difference between those two groups is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not circumstances. It is the practiced capacity to feel something fully and still choose what to do with it. That capacity does not show up in one moment. It is built in hundreds of ordinary moments, in situations that felt small, in pauses that felt unnecessary, in silences that felt uncomfortable, until one day, under real pressure, in a moment that actually cost something, the space is already there, and you move from it instead of being moved by what is happening around you. If what you just heard made something click, you are already thinking differently than you were at the start of this video. That shift is real. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to keep building on it. There is a pattern in the next video that connects directly to what was covered here, and most people get it completely backwards. And leave a comment with this. What is the one situation in your life right now where choosing not to react would immediately change your position? Be specific. The answer tells you more about yourself than you expect. Before your next high-pressure interaction, write down the single sentence on your phone or a piece of paper and read it once before you walk in. My response is mine. No one else triggers it. I choose it. That sentence takes 4 seconds to read. It reactivates the space between stimulus and response at exactly the moment you need it most. Use it once. See what changes.